for biology. Today I will be covering growth in plants, plant growth. Briefly, I will run through how to access the revision notes and test in clay6.com. Open the web page, that is clay6.com. Go to click on practice. Here you will find a lot of packages. Here we will pick NEET Premium package today. NEET Premium has got 4 test series in physics, chemistry, biology, and full test. Now, under biology, the tests are arranged chapter wise. Now, you can see different colored bubbles. Each bubble is a test. Now, if you look at the green bubble, it indicates that the test has been completed. But you can always visit the test again any number of times, either to revise or if you have scored less marks, if you want to see whether you are able to recollect, you can still visit the test again and again. If it is a blue bubble, it is indicative that you have not yet taken the test. If it is an yellow bubble, it means to say you had started the test but you have not completed. That means it's an incomplete test. Sometimes you would have done 2 or 3 questions. You would have realized you are not really ready for the test. So basically, when we look at biology, we have different tests. Here you can see the test series. This R bubble is a randomized test. Once you have completed all the given tests here, this test will show you that when you take this test, it will help you to revise quickly. And if you see, each chapter has got many number of tests, and it is dependent upon the complexity of the chapter in processing the textbooks, and also depending upon its importance in the examination. The tests have been arranged for. Before we get back into the lesson, you might be wondering how is the NEET exams going to be, because you will be writing it. So basically, when we look at biology, we have analyzed and found out that there are 3 broad kinds of questions. One is NCERT based. Here approximately 68 to 70 questions in the examination are directly from NCERT books. They can be attempted easily by those who read NCERT syllabus religiously. And it is directly from the previous year's question papers. Another 8 to 10 questions will fare from the previous papers. And if you look at these questions, either the questions are repeated straight with little or no modifications, and modified questions, at least 8 to 10 questions in NEET will be newer questions. So these questions become the game changers. And if you just know by mugging up the concepts, it is not possible to answer these questions, because you should be able to apply them rightly. And in this website, we have made an earnest attempt to help you prepare adequately for your NEET. And I hope you have got the framework now. So let us begin the lesson. So here, if you click on the revision notes, it will open into a PDF. And this PDF has been or done in such a way by the tutors that the entire crux of your 2 years 11th and 12th physics, chemistry and biology are captured in a very comprehensive manner in just 135 pages, so that you really gear up and it helps you during the revision. So I would suggest it's a real asset as a study tool for your exam preparation. Now let us get back into the lesson, that is plant growth and development. So you all know what is growth. Growth is the sum total of various processes that combines to cause an irreversible increase in the mass, weight or volume. Plant growth occurs by cell division and cell enlargement. Increase in the number and size of the cells cannot account for development of an organized plant. For example, when a seed is sown, it does not become larger seed, but it becomes a seedling. Thus, growth is invariably accompanied by differentiation, which is explained as qualitative change in terms of structure and function of the cells. Now, plant growth is unique because plants retain the capacity of unlimited growth throughout their life. This ability of the plants is due to the presence of meristems at certain locations in their body. Meristematic cells have the ability to divide and self-perpetuate. Now let us look into the regions of the growth. Now the shoot apical meristem, vascular cambium, and in the root apical meristem. So these are the regions of the growth, and this diagram is very important because they will ask you to identify the areas marked as A, B, and C. Now let us look at the measurement of growth. Now this diagram is very important, make a note. And now if you look at how growth is measured, growth can be measured by variety of parameters like increase in fresh weight, dry weight, length, area, volume, and cell number. Now let us look at the phases of growth. Now the three phases of growth are is generally divided into three phases, namely meristematic, elongation, and maturation phase. Now let us have a brief idea about all these phases. In the meristematic phase or the lag phase, the cells keep on dividing at the root apex and the shoot apex, which represent the meristematic phase or phase of cell formation or cell division. The cells in this region are rich in protoplasm and have large conspicuous nuclei. Elongation phase, or it's the log phase, the cells proximal to the meristematic zone represent the phase of elongation. Increased vacuolation, cell enlargement, and new cell wall deposition are the characteristics of the cells in this phase. Now, the last phase is the maturation phase or senescence phase. This lies close to the phase of elongation. Most of the tissues and cells represent this phase. Now, growth rate. The increased growth rate per unit time is called growth rate. Growth rate shows the increase that may be arithmetic or geometrical. Now let us look at the arithmetic growth. This is the linear growth. In following mitosis, only one daughter cell continues to divide while the other differentiates and matures. A linear curve is obtained. And mathematically, it is expressed as LT is equal to RT. LT is equal to length at time t. L naught is the length at time 0. R is the growth or elongation per unit time. Now let us look at the geometrical growth. Now you have to remember this equation. LT is equal to L naught plus RT for linear growth, and for the geometrical growth you get a sigmoid curve. So here the initial growth phase is slow, and that is called as the lag phase, and it increases rapidly, therefore exponential phase, and log phase. Here both the progeny cells showing mitosis retain the ability to divide and continue to do so. However, with limited nutrient supply, the growth slows and leads to a stationary phase. A sigmoid curve is obtained in this pattern, and this is the pattern which is generally seen. So the initial phase is the lag phase, the middle phase where it shoots up is the exponential phase, and later on it again staggers, and this is a stationary phase. So this they can ask you to identify as A, B, and C, and this is given by the equation Wi is equal to W naught, W1 is equal to W naught into ERT. Now this is very, very important. Now Wi is the final size, W naught is the initial size, R is the growth rate, and T is the time of growth, and E represents the base of natural logarithms. Now, what are the conditions for the growth? You know, for any growth to happen in plant, water, oxygen, nutrients, temperature, and light form the essential needs. Now, water. Plants cells grow in size by cell enlargement, which in turn need water. Turgidity of the cells help in extension of the growth. Water also provides medium for enzymatic activities needed for the growth. Nutrients. These are required by the plants for the synthesis of protoplasm, and they act as a source of energy. Now, temperature. Every plant has an optimum temperature range best suited for its growth. Now, oxygen. It is essential for aerobic respiration and hence availability of energy. So because from the aerobic respiration only, ATPs are synthesized, and that is what is the available energy for biosynthetic activity. Now last is the light. Environmental signals such as light and gravity also affect certain phases or stages of the plant. Now there are three terms which you should be knowing. One is differentiation, dedifferentiation, and redifferentiation. Differentiation: the root and shoot apical meristems and cambium differentiate and mature to perform certain specific functions. This is called differentiation. The cells undergo few to major structural changes both in their cell walls and protoplasm. They develop a strong, elastic, lignocellulosic secondary cell walls to carry water to long distances even under extreme conditions. Dedifferentiation: the living differentiated cells which have lost the capacity to divide can regain the capacity of division under certain conditions. And this phenomenon is what we call it as dedifferentiation. For example, formation of meristems like interfascicular cambium and core cambium from fully differentiated parenchyma cells. Redifferentiation: during the process of dedifferentiation, some meristematic tissues are able to divide and produce cells that once again lose their capacity to divide, but they mature to form cells with specific functions, and this is called redifferentiation. Now, the next is the development phase in the plant. Development is a term that includes all changes that an organism goes through during its life cycle from germination to senescence. A viable seed placed under suitable environmental conditions absorb water through micropyle, seed coats become soft and embryo cells become activated. Hormones and enzymes are formed by the RNA. The reserve food material is mobilized. Initially, the respiration is anaerobic, but it becomes aerobic. As food is transported to embryo cells, they begin to enlarge and divide. A radicle grows first. Formation of root is generally considered to be the symbol of seed germination. Growth of radicle is followed by the growth of either epicotyle or the hypocotyle, and ultimately the plumule grows. So the germination can be either epigel germination or hypogel germination, and finally the plumule, that is which develops into the shoot, happens. Now let us look at the plant growth substances. Now, the growth of the plant is regulated through gene action and environmental conditions. These are the substances which are produced by the plants themselves, which regulate their growth and many physiological and biochemical activities. These are called plant growth substances. Regulation of plant growth through chemical mechanism frequently involve certain molecules, and these are known as hormones. Based on the origin and biological activities, plant growth substances are grouped into three: plant growth regulators, phytohormones, and growth inhibitors. Now, growth regulators, it's a hormone like synthetic organic compound. In small amount, it modifies the growth and development either by promoting or inhibiting the growth. Example, naphthalinic acid. Phytohormones are the organic substances produced by the plant. They are active in very minute quantities. They are synthesized in one part of the plant and translocated to another part where they influence specific physiological, biochemical, and morphological changes. Phytohormones are broadly grouped under five major classes, namely auxins, gibberellins, cytokinins, ethylene, and abscisic acid. So you're not studying much about growth regulators because they are of synthetic origin, but phytohormones are of the important or the concept which we have to understand. Now let us look at each and every phytohormone in detail. Now the first one is the auxin. So the term auxin is applied to indole 3-acetic acid IAA and to natural and synthetic compounds having similar structure and growth regulating properties. Auxins are generally produced by the growing apices of the stem and the root, from where they migrate to the region of their action. Auxins like IAA and indole butyric acid, which is also called IBA, have been isolated from plants. There are many chemicals synthesized by chemists that cause various physiological responses common to IAA. Some of the examples of synthetic auxins are 2,4-D, that is 2,4-dichlorophenoxyacetic acid, and 2,4,5-T, that is 2,4,5-trichlorophenoxyacetic acid, naphthalene acetic acid, etc. Now, let us look at the functions of these auxins. Auxins help to induce meristematic activity and new cells are formed. This leads to the formation of adventitious roots at the base of the cuttings. This fact is of great practical importance and has been widely utilized to promote root formation in economically useful plants, which are propagated by cuttings. Auxins also control pre-harvest fruit drop. So before harvesting, it ensures that the fruit is not going to fall from the tree. The synthetic auxins 2,4-D and 2,4,5-T can be used to kill broadleaf weeds, but for reasons not completely understood at this time, they do not kill the grasses. That means 2,4-D and 2,4,5-T can be used effectively as weedicides. Initiation and promotion of cell division by auxins is very useful in tissue culture experiments and formation of callus. Higher concentration of auxins inhibit growth and exert toxic effect on the plants. Just because it is there, we can't be supplying auxins externally to ensure that the plant starts growing big. It doesn't happen. In normal course in nature, self-produced auxin inhibits the growth and development of lateral buds, and as a result, apical bud remains dormant, and this is what we call it as apical dominance. Bioassay of auxins. Bioassay means the testing of a substance for its activity in causing a growth response in a living plant or its part. The test measures the concentration which is required to produce the effect, and thus it is a quantitative test. Avena curvature test and root growth inhibition test are some of the bioassays for examining the auxin activity. Avena curvature test is one of the most widely used bioassay for auxin activity. The procedure involves the following steps. When the avena is nothing but your oats. Oat seedlings have attained a height of 50 to 30 millimeter. About 1 millimeter of coleoptile tip is removed. That is, from the top it is removed, and this apical part is the source of natural auxin. The tip is now placed on agar blocks for a few hours. During this time, the auxin diffuses out of these tips into the agar. The auxin containing agar block is now placed on one side of the decapitated stump of Avena coleoptile. The auxin from the agar block diffuses down through the coleoptile along the side to which the auxin agar block is placed. An agar block without auxin is also placed on another decapitated coleoptile, and this serves as the control. Within hours, the coleoptile with auxin agar block bends on the side opposite to which the agar block is placed. This curvature can be measured. No curvature is observed in the control coleoptile on which agar block without auxin has been placed. Now this is about the auxins. They might ask you on which plant the bioassay was conducted. You should be able to identify it as avena, which is nothing but the oats. Now the next group is gibberellic acid, a group of plant hormones that stimulate the growth of leaves and shoots in general, and internodal length of genetically dwarfed plants in particular are called gibberellins. In the year 1920s, a Japanese biologist was studying a disease of rice in which the young rice seedlings grew extremely tall suddenly and fell over and died. This caused a disease which is known as bakane or foolish seedling disease, and it was caused by a fungus, Gibberella fujikuri. The active principle responsible for causing disease symptom in rice was later identified from fungal extracts, and it was called gibberellins. Subsequently, gibberellins were identified from other plants as well. Chemically, gibberellins contain a gibbane ring system with specific biological properties. There are more than 100 gibberellins reported from both fungi and higher plants, and the number is still increasing. These are denoted as GA1, GA2, that is gibberellic acid 1, 2, and 3, and so on. However, GA3 is one of the first gibberellins to be discovered and remains the most intensively studied form. The major sites of gibberellin production in plants are embryos, root, and young leaves near the shoot tip. Now let us look at the functions of gibberellins. Gibberellins stimulate stem elongation and leaf expansion but have no effects on the roots. The most striking effect of gibberellins is the elongation of genetically dwarf, that is mutant varieties of plants such as corn and pea. Application of gibberellins to normal plants does not induce marked elongation. It is believed that certain types of dwarfnesses are due to gibberellin deficiency. Gibberellins can also induce stem elongation in rosette plants. Rosette plants means which are short and where the leaves would have become bushy. That is what we call it as the rosette. Cabbage is a good example of such a plant in which leaf development is profuse, growth is retarded. Just prior to the reproductive phase, the internodes elongate enormously, causing a marked increase in stem height. And this is called bolting. Bolting requires either long days or cold nights. If a cabbage head is kept under warm nights, it retains its rosette habit. Bolting in cabbage can be induced artificially by the application of gibberellins under conditions that would normally maintain the rosette form. Natural dormancy of buds, tubers, rhizomes, and some seeds can be overcome by application of gibberellins. Gibberellins also induce the production of enzymes like amylases, proteases, lipases, and ribonucleases for mobilizing storage reserves during seed germination and early seed growth. Gibberellins also cause parthenocarpy in pome fruits and are now used in India to increase the fruit size and bunch length in the grapes. Now we have seen that it also controls flowering and long day plants, which I will be talking about from a few minutes from now. In addition, they can substitute for the low temperature that biennials require before the initiation of flowering. If gibberellins are applied to biennials during their first year of growth, flowering occurs without exposure to a period of low temperature. These promote the production of either in place of female flowers in monoecious plants such as cucurbits or in genetically female plants such as cannabis. Now, bioassay of gibberellins, if you look at it, shoot elongation in some dwarf mutants and barley endosperm test are used as bioassays. Now, next substance we are going to talk about is the cytokinin. Cytokinins are a group of plant hormones, including kinetin, which acts synergistically with auxins to promote cell division. They have definite effects on cytokinesis and were discovered as kinetin, that is a modified form of adenine, from the autoclaved herring sperm DNA. Kinetin does not occur naturally in plants. The searches for natural substances with cytokine-like activity led to the isolation of zeaxanthin from corn kernels and coconut milk, etc. Since the discovery of zeaxanthin, several naturally occurring cytokinins and some synthetic compounds with cell division promoted from the plants. Cytokinins are synthesized in area where cell division is occurring. For example, root apices, developing shoot buds, young fruits, etc. Now let us look at the functions of cytokinins. So, as I said, they do not function alone. It always works in conjunction with auxins, and it stimulates cell division even in non-meristematic regions. In tissue cultures of parenchyma, mitosis are accelerated when both auxin and cytokinin are present. No response occurs with auxin or with cytokinin alone. Moreover, the ratio of cytokinins to auxins controls cell differentiation. When both are present in relatively equal quantities, cells divide but they do not differentiate. If there is more cytokinin than auxin, shoot buds develop from a callus. If there is relatively more auxin than cytokinins, roots will develop. Thus, the proportion of these two hormones control organ formation in callus tissues. Now, cytokinins also act antagonistically to auxin, which promotes apical dominance. They promote the growth of the lateral buds. So we have seen that apical dominance is promoted by the auxins, whereas when you apply cytokinins, it promotes the growth of the lateral buds. Cytokinins can retard aging of the plant organs by controlling protein synthesis and mobilization of the resources. Cut leaves dipped in cytokinins stay green longer than the control leaves. Cytokinins induce flowering in certain species, and they also break the dormancy of some seeds. Now, bioassay, if you look at it, the common bioassay for cytokinins include promotion of cell division in tobacco pith culture, expansion of excised radish cotyledons, delay in senescence, etc. Now, let us look at ethylene. Ethylene is a hormone. So, what are its effects or functions on the plants? So, you know that it is a fruit ripening hormone. So, it induces the ripening of the fruits. It promotes senescence and abscission of the plant organs. Exposure of plants to ethylene causes drooping of leaves and flowers, and this is known as epinasty. It modifies growth by inhibiting cell elongation and stimulating transverse expansion so that the stem looks swollen. It influences horizontal growth of seedlings and tighter apical hook formation in dicot seedlings. Ethylene application increases the number of female flowers and fruits in the cucumber plants. So, this is the function of the ethylene. Now, the last one we had to know is the abscisic. In the quest for naturally occurring substances that were responsible for bud dormancy and leaf abscission, plant physiologists discovered a growth regulator in the mid 1960s, and this one was called as the abscisic acid. Abscisic acid is a naturally occurring growth inhibitor. Now, what are the functions of abscisic acid? Abscisic acid inhibits mitosis in vascular cambium and causes active axillary buds to become dormant with the approach of winter. It also inhibits growth of excised embryos, plays a major role in seed development and maturation and desiccation. Desiccation means getting dried up and to become dormant. It also acts as a stress hormone, helping the plant to cope with adverse environmental conditions. For example, under severe drought, abscisic acid prevents water loss by causing stomatal closure. Abscisic acid application to leaf causes the treated areas to become yellow, an effect opposite to that seen in an application of cytokinin. So, this table is very, very important. Whatever I have explained from the neat point of view, we have captured the essence so that it becomes easier for you to understand and learn. Now, photoperiodism. The response of the plant to relative length of day and night periods to induce flowering is called photoperiodism. And there are three types of photoperiodism that are generally seen. And you have got the long day plants, short day plants, and day neutral plants. So, the ability of the plant to detect and respond to the length of the daily period of light, or more precisely, the relative length of day and night to which the plant is exposed, is called photoperiodism. In response to photoperiod, the flowering responses of basic categories: short day plants, long day plants, and neutral plants. Now, long day plants begin exceeds the critical length. The long day plants are wheat, barley, sugar, beet, larkspur, etc. Short day plants initiate flowering when the day becomes shorter than a certain critical length. If these plants are kept in day lengths in excess of this critical point, they will remain vegetative. The short day plants include cosmos, dahlia, chrysanthemum, rice, etc., and they are grown generally in season. Neutral or intermediate day plants flower after a period of vegetative growth, regardless of the photoperiod. Tobacco, cucumber, sunflower, tomato are some examples of the neutral or intermediate day plants. So this is very important. You had to have a list of examples, whatever examples you have given in the examination, for you to remember and identify the plants in from the choices given. The critically day length of both long day and short day plants tend to fall in the 12 to 14 hour range. The term long day and short day plants are actually misnomers. When photoperiodism was discovered, the duration of the light period was thought to be critical for flowering. However, the light period was interrupted in short day plants by a brief exposure to light. They failed to flower. The requirement is actually for a long night or a critical dark period rather than for a short day length. Thus, a short day plant is more appropriately called a long night plant. Long day plant respond to night shorter than the critical dark period. Long day plants do not need an uninterrupted dark light. Thus, a long day plant is more appropriately called as a short night plant. So, actually, it's a misnomer. Now, let us look into the other concepts like vernalization. So many plants such as winter annuals, biennials, and perennials require a cold temperature treatment before flowering can begin. This requirement for a cold exposure is called vernalization. Different species of vernalization at different ages. Some winter cereals can be vernalized as seeds, provided that they have imbibed, that is soaked up water and are metabolically active. These plants will respond until they reach a particular size. Temperature and amount of time required vary among species. Vernalization typically occurs between 1 to 10 degrees Celsius for a 3 to 8 week period. Vernalization takes place in the apical meristem, that is, the actively growing regions at the tip of branches or at the top of stems. Experiments where only the apical meristems were chilled still led to the flowering in plants requiring vernalization, even though the rest of the plants were not chilled. Chilling leaves generally has no effect. Now, the next one we had to look is the senescence. Senescence is the period between complete maturity and final death of an organism. During this period, a gradual deterioration occurs in the structure and functioning, which is characterized by accumulation of waste metabolic products and decrease in dry weight. It is also illustrated by higher rate of catabolic activities, and it is controlled by some growth hormones. Senescence can be retarded to some extent by the use of growth regulators like cytokinin. Cytokinin has the property to conserve chlorophyll and to mobilize solutes from the older regions to the regions of senescence. Senescence occurs between 1 to 2 years. The upper ground shoot portion dies every year after producing flowers and fruits, but the underground part survives to produce shoots again next year. This is seen very typically in banana and gladiolus, the bulbs. Now, sequential senescence. The older leaves and lateral organs senesce and die, but the tips of main shoot and branches remain meristematic, continue to produce new buds and leaves. Example, perennial plants. Simultaneous or synchronous senescence. All the leaves of a tree shed off in a particular season. Example, in temperate species like elm and maple, the leaves fall in the late autumn. So this is about the senescence. So these are all the little concepts which you are expected to learn from the neat point of view. Now the last one is the abscission. Abscission is the shedding of leaves caused by plants, usually due to change in hormonal balance. In this process, an abscission layer is formed within the region of attachment. The middle lamella between certain cells in this layer is often digested by polysaccharide hydrolyzing enzymes such as cellulase and pectinase. Degenerative changes also occur, making the region become soft and weak. The organ from the plant is then simply detached due to the effect of heavy rainfall or wind, etc. Abscisic acid plays a very significant role in this process. So with this, we have covered all the concepts that are relevant from the neat point of view. I hope you have understood all the points. Now let us look into the test. Now let us look here. Response to gravity, response to touch, response to temperature. See here, if you're not aware of the answer, just look at response to gravity, or if you think it is phototropism, you are aware of. So D, you see where it is going to C. D is matched with C. It is happening only in one choice. So that should be the right thing. So let us look at response to gravity is known as geotropism. So A is F. Rest B is one choice. Geotropism. C, response to temperature is thermotropism. C is D. D, response to light is phototropism. C. E, response to water is hydrotropism. B, response to chemicals is chemotropism. A. So let us click and go to next question. So here, now promotes ripening of the fruits. So let us look at D. D. You find D in two choices. D, here, B, D. Now let us look into the next thing. Abscisic acid. So oxons, let us look at oxons first. So oxons, high concentration stimulates ethylene production. So A and F. A and F. So first one is the right choice. That means to say oxide concentration stimulates production. Acetic acid responsible for geotonic responses in roots. The pigment cytochrome controls photomorphogenetic responses. True. Cytochrome pigment occurs in two photoreversible forms. Yes. Because of its occurrence in two photoreversible forms, we are able to have the photomorphogenetic responses. True. Cytochrome responses controlled by pigment cytochrome. So, by certain reason, reason is the correct explanation. So, A is the best. Dry seeds do not germinate. The most important external factor for seed germination is water. So both assertion and reason are true, and reason is a correct assertion. So A is the answer. Ethylene is a gaseous phytohormone. True. It is responsible for ripening many fruits. True. But it is not explaining the assertion. So choice is B. Both assertion and reason are true, but reason is not the correct explanation. Now, when cytokinin is applied to the plants, it induces senescence. Now, cytokinin is found of proteins, chlorophyll, and nucleic acids. No. Here both are wrong. So both assertion and reason are false. In nutrient medium, culture is growth is slow initially, that is the lag phase, increases rapidly in the exponential phase, and again slows down. True. Growth is slow due to small number of cells. and again slows down. Both slows down due to so the choice is A. It includes slow initially, better chemicals and drought conditions. ABA, that is, when the ABA is applied exogenously, it promotes stromatal opening. False. So, no, it is also true. Both assumption and reason are true. Explanation of A. Plants bend towards the source of light. Yes. The positive phototropism is shown by the shoot apex as there is differential growth due to unequal distribution of oxygen. Yes. So both assertion and reason are true, and reason is the correct explanation of the assertion. Sorry. Now, in the actively growing herbaceous plants, the axillary buds are generally dormant. It is because of apical dominance. Yes, it is A. In germinating seeds, fats are stored as reserve food materials, which are rich in glyoxomes. Germinating cells are for the conversion of fats to provide energy to germinating seeds. So both are true, and reason is the correct explanation. So it is A. It's not taking. Let me see. The isolated alluron layer induces amylase activity when gibberellic acid is added. Enzyme amylase converts insoluble starch to soluble sugars. Both are true, but it does not give the reason. So this is B. Then axillary bud grows out when the apical bud is removed. Oxygen present in the higher concentration in apical bud suppresses the growth of the next. So both A assertion and reason are true, and reason is a correct explanation. If a long dark period is interrupted by a flash of light in xanthium, it will not flower. Xanthium is a long day plant, in which case a continuous long period is essential for flowering. Here assertion is true, but reason is false. Auxin and cytokinins are required in correct concentration for the development of root and shoot in cactus. When the concentration of kinase or auxin is high, the shoot develops, and then concentration is low, root develops. So both assertion and reason are true, and reason is the correct explanation of the assertion. See here, in this chapter, if you look at it, in most of the NEET questions, they have asked the assertion and reasoning was maximally. But one test contains only assertion and reasoning. So all the answers are correct. If any question is wrong, then it would be indicated by red. So if you go and click on that question number, whichever shows the red color box, there you will get to know the correct answer. It will also display your correct answer and your answer and correct answer. You are able to correct if any correct answer, so that you are not attempted a question. It's going to give you the yellow color. When you see the yellow color, it means you have not attempted the question. You can click correct answer with explanation. It is better, children, to avoid doing incorrect ones, because if you answer incorrectly, it is going to be subtracted from your total marks you have scored. That is being from the number of correct answers you have answered, and from that it will be deducted. So since it is negative marking, it is always better. Now with this, we have come to the end of today's class. Now note that NEET, let us look into NEET premium package. I will once again bring it to your notice. It has got NEET full test with 15 original NEET. All these are solved. You can get a task feature and on our site, and we also support chat group using Telegram. You can also book slots for one-to-one teaching with any of the two. Find it is very difficult, or for any other inquiries, mail your query to info@clay6.com. Thank you.